If this US-Iran war keeps going, it will not just push up dice and oil prices, it will also raise shipping risks, inflation, and the political price Trump may have to pay. If things keep getting worse in the Strait of Hormuz, will oil prices spin out of control? Will this war end up hurting Trump politically? Hey everyone, I'm Wei. Today, we are not just talking about who bombed who. We are looking at a bigger question: why this war is getting harder to stop. First, let's look at what matters most to the US. If the Strait of Hormuz gets blocked, it affects about 1/5 of world's oil and LNG shipments. Oil prices have already been pushed up hard. That means higher gas prices, higher shipping costs, higher food prices, and higher living costs. Put simply, this war is not just being fought with missiles now. It is also being fought through oil prices and through politics at home. Now, let's look at the battlefield. Trump and Israel have hit Iran very hard in this round. Top figures were taken out. Military sites were bombed. Air defenses were pushed down. Iran's Air Force and Navy also took serious losses. But here is the problem. Big hits don't always mean the mission is done, because Iran was not knocked out in one wave. On March 18, the US intelligence side said clearly in a Senate hearing that Iran had been weakened. But it was still there. It could still fight. It could still use proxies, pressure others. In other words, the US and Israel didn't get a quick win, and Iran didn't collapse in one shot. So at this point, this is no longer a fast war. It is a war stuck in place. And here is what matters even more. Iran is clearly in worse shape now than it was during last year's 12-day war. Its top leader is gone. Senior military leaders were taken out. Its intelligence system was hit hard. Its air defense were pushed down. Its Air Force, Navy, and a lot of its military industry were almost wiped out. In the original thinking of US and Israel, Iran should have collapsed by now. But that is not what happened. Iran didn't stop. It kept fighting. In some ways, it even hit back harder. Why? Because the US and Israel destroyed a lot of things on the surface, a lot of things people can easily to see, but they still didn't hit Iran's real weak spot. What still makes Iran dangerous is not its old fighter jets or high Navy ships. It is its underground missile system. It is launchers spread out in different places. It is a command chain that still works even after being hit. It is its proxy network. And above all, it is the Strait of Hormuz, because that is what lets this war spill into global oil prices and global shipping. So the issue is not that Iran is getting stronger. The issue is that the US and Israel still have not broken the system that lets Iran make others bleed, push up prices, and create pressure inside other countries. But there is another key point here. It is not that Iran doesn't want the war to stop. Any rational ruler wants growth. Any rational ruler wants breathing room. No one truly wants to keep a country stuck in war forever. So the problem is not whether Iran wants to stop. The problem is that Iran has not gotten the result it wants. It has not gotten a deal it can explain at home. It has not gotten a result that projects itself can leverage. It has not gotten a result that keeps the regime safe. So right now, the issue is not that Iran totally refused to talk. The issue is that everyone knows these talks will probably go nowhere. Because if Iran talks right now, it looks too much like giving up while still bleeding. And in that situation, Iran is not going to bow first easily. Iran already signaled through the Oman channel before that the uranium issue could be discussed if sanction conditions were met. That tells you something important. Iran is not against talks by nature. It is against giving in with nothing in return. And that is exactly why Trump has started looking for other options. Airstrike alone can't get him what he really needs to end this war. Talks are hard. Escort missions are not coming together. So the options left to him will only get tougher and riskier. Let's look at Trump himself. His problem is not whether he can get fighting. His problem is that the longer this goes on, the more divided the US get. Inside the White House, there is already a split. The economic and political team worry about oil prices, gas prices, and election costs. The hawks want him to keep pricing Iran, even inside Trump's MAGA base. Some people do not want America dragged into another long Middle East war. A Reuters and Ipsos poll showed that only about a quarter of Americans support these strikes, while more people oppose them. Support for a large ground war is even lower, only 7%. That means the political pressure on Trump is very real, and Trump's side has not avoided losses either. On March 12, a KC-135 refueling plane on a support mission crashed in Iraq, and all 6 US service members on board were killed. Before that, Iranian strikes had already damaged several US refueling planes. And the more Trump tries to say the damage was small, the more it shows that the hit really mattered. Because refueling plans are not some side detail. They are the lifeline of the whole long-range airstrike system. There were also reports that a US stealth fighter had to make an emergency landing at a base in the Middle East. So no, Trump is not fighting this war for free. He is fighting and he is bleeding too. That is why his recent statements sound so awkward. On March 9, he said the war was almost done. On March 11th, he said Iran had almost nothing left to fight with. Then on March 21, he said the US was thinking about a gradual wrap-up. That tells you he is already looking for a way down. But he still can't sound like he is backing off in public. And the reason is simple. What Trump really fears is not one more Iranian missile wave. What he really fears is oil prices, inflation, and the midterm elections. In February, non-farm payrolls fell by 92,000, and unemployment rose to 4.4%. The US economy was already under pressure. So if the Strait of Hormuz blows up at the moment, like this, and oil keeps climbing, that becomes one political landmine after another for Trump. Put simply, what he fears most is not losing a base today. It is waking up tomorrow and seeing gas prices jump across America. That hurts wars more than battlefield headlines do. So Trump really mindset comes down to this. It is not that he doesn't want to win. It is that he more and more wants to avoid losing badly. No, let's look at Israel. Israel does not want to stop. It feels it can't stop, and it doesn't want to accept partial results. Around March 10, Israeli officials said publicly that the war would continue until they and Trump decided the time was right, and that partial results were not enough. Reuters also cited the Israeli military wanted to hit as much as possible while the window was still open, because they worry Trump may suddenly hit the brakes. Put simply, Israel's biggest fear is not that it can't keep fighting. Its biggest fear is that America suddenly stops. Because, in Israel's eyes, this is the best chance to weaken Iran. If the US pulls back halfway through, then all the cost already paid may not bring the long-term security gain Israel wants. That is why Israel is even less willing than Trump to hit the brakes. And that brings us back to Hormuz. At first, Trump wanted the old playbook, bring allies together and escort shipping. But in real life, that plan has not gone well. Reuters reported that Japan clearly said it has no
Japan's
escort
navy
plan.
is a lot more powerful than
The
you
US
realize.
itself also told the shipping industry for a time that the risk was too high and escort protection could not really be done. Most European countries also prefer a ceasefire first and talks later, instead of jumping in right now. Everyone knows Hormuz matters, but nobody wants to step on the mine first for Trump. So, this is so-called international escort plan may sound good on paper, but in real life, it is very hard. So if escort missions are not coming together, what came next? Simply, the options left for the US only get harder and riskier. And this is no longer just talk. The US is already moving in a more dangerous direction. One line is that plans to seize Iran's nuclear material and enrich uranium stockpile still being started. The other time is that force preparation for excellent operations and key excellent points are already moving forward. What the outside world sees now is not just 1 or 2 ships testing the water. It is 6 amphibious warships and more than 8,000 troops gathering in that direction. At the same time, Reuters also made clear that so far, the US has not decided to send ground troops directly into Iranian territory. Trump also publicly mentioned that the US had hit military targets on Kurt Island. That island is one of Iran's most important oil export hubs. That matters because it shows Trump is no longer just talking about escort missions. He is keeping more dangerous options open. So what we need to watch now is no longer just whether more bombs will fall. What we really need to watch is whether the US will move from airstrikes, escort talk, and forward pressure into something more direct, like controlling key points and taking key targets. Put simply, if everyone knows the talks will fail, escort missions can't be built, and airstrikes still can't produce a real ending, then Trump is very likely to try something unusual, not a full war to occupy Iran, but a plan to use smaller losses to grab the most important things Iran still has. And what is most important here? Not just a few bases, not just a few generals. It is the core leverage that still lets Iran hold on, spread the war outward, and affect global energy and bargaining power. So the US is really moving on 2 levels. The outer level is force building up and forward pressure, getting ready for beach landings, excellent operations, and control of key excellent points. The inner level is figuring out how to take Iran's nuclear material and its most important leverage. That is no longer a normal airstrike manned site. That is a shift from hitting to controlling and taking. And that also explains why Iran is even less likely to stop now, because Iran knows its enemies are no longer aiming at just a few air defense systems or a few military sites or a little face-saving issue. They are aiming at its real core weak point. And in that kind of situation, asking Iran to talk easily or stop easily was never realistic. Finally, let's talk about Larijani. He mattered for more than just his title. He was one of Iran's most important behind-the-scenes power figures. He had political weight. He had religion's legitimacy, and he could move between different factions inside Iran. More importantly, he had also taken part in the Oman negotiation channel. That matters because before the war, he was still one of the few senior Iranian figures willing to leave the door open for talks. But once he died, that opening got even smaller for Iran. It lost someone who could still coordinate different sides. For Trump, he lost someone who might still have been reachable. So the result is not that the war became easier to end. It became harder to end. And things get even harder with the new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei. He is not a softer figure. He is harder to talk to. Reuters says he already rejected cooling proposals passed through mediators. From a political and psychological point of view, two things are sitting on him at the same time. One is family revenge. The other is the survival pressure of a regime already pushed into the corner. So expecting him to suddenly turn around and negotiate right away was never realistic. What he is more likely to do is take the hardest possible stance first, then see if he can force the other side to blink by raising the cost even more. So when you put all three sides together, the conclusion is clear. Iran can't go soft. Israel doesn't want to stop. Trump wants a way down, but he can't afford to lose too badly. Those three positions simply don't line up. So this war is no longer about whether they can talk. It is about who breaks first, and only then talks